Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome this evening. Let us begin tonight's festivities. Mr. and Mrs. McGeorge, faculty, staff, family members, loved ones, and of course, our Corps of Cadets. I am delighted to welcome all of you to the 83rd Annual W. Wallace Fry Public Speaking Contest, which marks the official beginning of the 126th commencement exercises at Missouri Military Academy. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize our wonderful Missouri Military Academy Jazz Band. Let's please recognize them for their wonderful music. We open this weekend's graduation ceremonies with a speech contest. The importance of the speaking arts has always been an integral part of one's education throughout history. Rhetoric and argumentation are central themes, for instance, in several of Plato's dialogues. Aristotle even writes a book on rhetoric. The medieval university included rhetoric as one of the major components of the liberal arts. In the 17th and 18th century, great philosophers like Francis Bacon and Thomas Hobbes spoke eloquently, wrote eloquently on the importance of speaking correctly. In the 20th century, we find Richard Weaver's book, The Ethics of Rhetoric, that gives parameters, moral parameters, on what it is to give a good speech. Going back to the ancient concept by Quintilian, that a good speech, a truly good speech, is articulated by a truly good man or woman. We at MMA certainly believe, and I'm pleased to be able to introduce good cadets here who are going to give good speeches. This evening, 3 middle school cadets will compete for the newly created Joy McGeorge Middle School Oratory Award. Thank you, Mrs. McGeorge, for sponsoring this well-deserved award for our middle school students. And 4 high school cadets will vie for the Wallace Fry Public Speaking Award and the Churchill Memorial Plaque. In 1932, the late Judge Fry of the MMA class of 1903 inaugurated his award to be presented each year to that cadet at Missouri Military Academy whose speech is judged to be the best on the basis of delivery, content, and rhetorical skill. An additional incentive was added to the contest in 1970 when Westminster College, located in Fulton, Missouri, provided the Sir Winston Churchill Memorial Award. The Churchill Award goes to the cadet whose well-delivered message espouses a just cause. The speeches tonight represent the work of the entire MMA Cadet Corps. Competition began months ago as each cadet researched and wrote a paper on a vital issue of today for their English class. Each student then presented his speech in preliminary competition. Teachers selected semifinalists from each class who were then judged by an MMA faculty panel. That competition resulted in the selection of the 7 finalists who will speak this evening. We are pleased to have 3 distinguished gentlemen to be our judges this evening, and I would like to introduce them now. We first have Mr. Lou Leonati, lawyer at Leonati and Baker, PC, from Mexico, Missouri, the law office that first sponsored historically the Wallace Fry Awards. Let's please make him feel welcome. Dr. Mitchell McKinney, professor and chair of the Communication Department at the University of Missouri-Columbia, who has specialized primarily in political communication and things of that nature. Let's make him feel welcome, please. And lastly, Mr. Patrick Morgan, Chief Counsel, Securities Division, Office of the Missouri Secretary of State. Please let's make him feel welcome. The order of the speakers was chosen randomly. So although in alphabetical order you see their names on the program, we chose them randomly. The first group of cadets will be the middle school cadets who, as I said, will vie for the Joy McGeorge oratorical contest. And so I will announce each cadet who will be speaking. And our first middle school cadet will be Jordan Thomas Hornick, class of 2020. Should college athletes be paid?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm here to talk about why I think college athletes should be paid. My first reason is because if I put myself in their perspective, I would like to think I would get paid because I am working 10 to 20 more hours longer than the normal employee. The normal employee works around 40 hours a week minimum, Monday through Friday. A normal college athlete works 50 to 60 hours a week, Monday through Saturday, and usually take the day off Sunday. My second reason is because they learn how to manage their salary at a young age. Learning how to manage your salary at a young age is important because they will learn from their mistakes as they get older. Say if they buy drugs, alcohol, then they might learn from their mistakes and not buy it again and not get in trouble with the association. And my third reason is because the advertisements are very expensive. Around $342,000 is a game nationally. And for a Super Bowl, it's around $4 million for 30 seconds. And for 60 seconds, it's around $8 million. I think that they should pay the college athletes as their advertisements because it's a lot cheaper, the schools will save money, and the college athletes will also work harder to become better. As I close out my speech, I would like to leave a question. If you are thinking about going to college and becoming a college athlete, then how would you feel about getting paid?
Our second middle school speaker will be Eugenio Valdez, class of 2019. Are we too dependent on computers?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We live in a world in which technology is the one that rules. Our world has evolved. Humans have evolved to the technology era. In my opinion, humans depend too much on technology that we cannot think about getting rid of all our electronics. Imagine, how lost would you be in this world? How would you communicate with your people that surround you? All your text messages, phone calls, emails. I really don't know how life was before I was born, but right now I know something. There is a problem in the human interaction, and it's growing every single day. There is a question that calls my attention, and I have asked people my age or a little bit older about. When was the last time you called someone for a conversation face to face? Their answer was, I don't remember. I don't know. Nowadays, people prefer talking to each other using text messages or emails or even phone calls. There's a quote of a very admirable person called Albert Einstein that says, I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. That day, the world will have a generation of idiots. In my opinion, that day is getting closer and closer. I'm not trying to convince you that technology is bad for us, because improvement in medical technology has saved countless of lives. The industrial and manufacturing has made the workplace safer and has increased productivity, everything because of technology. But my worries are, we are inventing things that make our mind work less and less. There's research by doctors that technology is one of the most important reasons of obesity in the United States. The reason is, we are sitting down, or sitting in our computers, playing video games every single day. I always remember that my mom tells me that when she was a little kid, instead of playing video games and being at the computer, she was outside, running and having fun with her friends. Right now, I want you to ask yourself a question. Are we really that happy with our computers and phones? It's proven that the happiest people is the ones that have less. You can start making a change. Don't make your life dependent to technology. You can call me crazy, but I imagine a world where we smile and we have low batteries. Because that day will mean that we are one step closer to humanity. Thank you.
And our last speaker for the Joy McGeorge Oratorical Contest Award is our middle schooler, Rogelio Correa Lopez, class of 2021. Are we too dependent on technology?
Yeah. Good evening. Many people don't ask themselves these questions. Are we using technology wrong? Are we too dependent on technology? Is technology essential in our lives? We spend too much time using technology. We need to socialize. And we need to use technology as a tool, not as a way to harm. It is becoming a weapon, and around 58% of Americans check their phones at least every hour. This shows that technology can be called an addiction. And around 73% of Americans feel panic or desperate when they lose their phones. There's a problem that is called nomophobia. It stands for no mobile fear, and it means that it is a fear of being away from mobile contact. There's a quote by Jan Arp that he is a famous sculptor. Soon, silence will have passed into legend. Man has turned his back on silence. Day after day, he invents machines and devices that increase noise and distract humanity from the essence of life, contemplation, and meditation. Should distraction be a way for peace? I don't think so. Many people use technology really bad. An example is cyberbullying. This is bad because it can cause suicide, and we don't really want that. We should be taught how to be safe in the internet and how to not harm others. Because technology is meant to be good, it's not meant to harm. Another problem are the hackers. There's a super virus called Reventon that was created by hackers from Russia, Georgia, and Ukraine. This super virus gets in any computer and it takes control of it, and it asks for money in exchange of the control of your computer. Another problem is social networking, because it encourages you to be more public about your private life. It also distracts you from socializing. I visualize technology as a friend and as an enemy. It can be a benefactor or it can be a threat. Many people have helped humanity become what we are now. And I don't think that technology is the problem. I think we are the problem, and it should stop. We should begin to use it as a tool. The real problem is not what our machines think, it's what we do.
Let's recognize these middle school students for their speeches once again, please. We now go to the high school, and our first speaker will be Cadet Unil Jian, class of 2016, The Importance and Impact of Jazz.
Do any of you guys recognize this tune? I'm pretty sure you guys might not know the name of the song, but you guys have probably heard it once in the restaurant, cafe, or even the street. The name of the song is All Blues, played by Miles Davis in 1959, part of the biggest jazz album in the history, Kind of Blue. Like this, jazz has always been around us. But I want to ask a question, do we really know about jazz? If we ask non-musician people what jazz is, they would say, do you know what jazz is? It's like, isn't that music? Many black people play it. What is that, saxophone, trumpet, what is that thing, tuba, or trombone? Yeah. Oh, it started in New Orleans. And I'll be surprised if they can answer that much about jazz. To give a simple definition about jazz, according to music critic Joyce's Ernest Bernadette, he said, jazz is, quote, form of art music which originated in the United States through the confrontation of the Negro with European music, end quote. Which sounds about right. However, I believe that there is something more than that into jazz. Since jazz has influenced 20th century of America so deeply in a way that it even mirrors and reflects the American society and culture. And also, it have influenced the 20th century of America in a way that I believe it even made desegregation possible. To give a brief history about jazz, jazz started in New Orleans in 1900 as a ragtime music. This movement was started by Scott Joplin, a great African-American pianist. And this ragtime music demonstrates the society of 1900, as exact as it is. During this time, America was going through one of its biggest time of the history, industrial growth. During this time, many communities and the entire economy was booming, and they were getting richer, and people were getting excited about all these monies they were having all of a sudden. And ragtime music, with its bright style and fast tempo and excitement and unique style of music, demonstrated their feeling. It showed how excited people were during that time just by listening to those ragtime music. Because of its unique and joyous style, it started to become really popular in America. However, there was one group which really didn't appreciate the situation. In 1902, American Federation of Music banned every single ragtime music from being played or being published. And if they were meant to be published or being played, they had to say, instead of ragtime music, they had to say Negro music. On the surface, American Federation of Music said the reason why we're banning all the ragtime music from being played is because it's such a low quality of music and it's demeaning the history of America, music history of America. However, the real reason under that was because they were afraid that African American culture would take dominance of culture of America. And they were afraid that white people and African American people were starting to get along. And they were afraid that segregation was going to be over. They thought it was going to be total chaos. However, this law actually gave African American people a chance to think critically. They finally started to realize that segregation is not just a designated seat in the back of the bus or in the restaurant. They started to realize that this thing is actually suppressing all of our culture to be expressed. And we have no rights of arts. So in 1905, one of the black newspapers in Indianapolis had a headline saying, quote, "Composers should not set music to a set of words that are a direct insult to the color race," end quote. And I believe that this was the start movement of desegregation. And as like every other rules in this entire world, as soon as they banned ragtime music, it started to furnish even more. And during 1920, which is the craziest time in American history, Roaring Twenties, there were two types of communities and ideas going around in America. First, it was traditionalists who demonstrated Victorian values, who wanted to keep growing and who wanted to keep getting richer. And there was another group, which was modernist, who wanted to back off from all the hard work they've been doing and relax for a moment. And again, jazz music mirrors and reflects this situation of the society perfectly. Ragtime music, which were keep getting furnished, demonstrated the excitement of traditionalists, while spiritual jazz, which was coming out during that time, played by great jazz musicians such as Coleman Hawkins or Louis Armstrong, showed that they wanted to relax, and it demonstrated a very slow tempo and smooth style of jazz. As these two ideas were going around, ragtime music still furnished, and the thing American Federation of Music worried about actually happened. Many white people during this time started to question themselves and started to have a doubt and have a question. What is this ragtime music, and what is going on in the downtown of New Orleans that even American Federation of Music had to ban every single ragtime music? They became curious. So many people started to go down to the club and pub where all the ragtime musics are being played and where all the African American people are at. And they started to see each other more often. They started to communicate. And they started to realize, wow, these people are not that different from us. They both get drunk. They both have fun. They both see each other cry and laugh. And they started to realize we're really not that different. However, because of the segregation, they were really scared to express their idea. But however, in the back of their mind, they started to realize they're not that different. Before they realized even more about it, America had to go to hardest time in the history, which was Great Depression. During this time, because African American people didn't have good economy, they had no chance, almost no chance to play jazz music in the society. If they did, they were born in a rich community. However, not many African American people were during that time. And during this time, it actually gave a chance for white jazz musicians to come out in the ground and show their talents, such as Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller. However, they didn't stand up for themselves. Benny Goodman in 1935 actually came up with the first interracial jazz group in the entire history. And they weren't just playing in the community. People saw them in the television. This was one of the biggest shocks during that moment, because they've never seen an African American person or a white person playing jazz music together or even having fun together in the television. They were smiling, and they were creating the best music during that time period. And they started to question themselves again. They started to ask, wow, I just realized that color doesn't really matter in jazz music or any music. Then color, does it really matter in anything? Business, economy? They started to realize it really doesn't matter. Before they expressed their feelings about this, after they realized, sadly, America had to go to world wars. And as soon as the world wars were over, during 1950 and 1960, America hits its zenith of the jazz music. During this time, jazz music demonstrated very unorthodox and avant-garde style of jazz. And during this time, the greatest jazz musicians came out, such as The Bird, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, and the giant John Coltrane. And surprisingly, during this time, when the jazz music was unorthodox and avant-garde, and when it was on its zenith, the segregation was over. Some people might say it's just a coincidence, but I truly believe that it wasn't. I understand there were speeches and there were marches in the streets going along against segregation. However, I believe the true thing which made desegregation possible was this jazz music. Became deep part of everybody's culture, making people realize that everybody's same, and all it happens when we unite together is creating better music. And I think it would apply to everything else. People start to realize. To sum up all the information I've said, I want to say that American people, or even the entire world, should be more educated about jazz. Since studying jazz is like studying 20th century of America. Because when you listen to the music in 1930, you can feel how sad they were about losing monies and losing their families in Great Depression. And when you listen to 900 music, you can see that how excited people were about industrial growth and all the monies they were getting. Also, it made desegregation possible because it had deeply influenced people's mind that everybody is same. So I believe everybody should be more educated about jazz. So next time when we hear all blues, we can feel how Miles Davis felt about end of segregation. Thank you.
Our second speaker this evening is Joshua Paley, class of 2015, the Armenian genocide, the world's refusal to acknowledge history.
Raise your hand if you've heard of the Jewish Holocaust. Let's see. All right, I think it's pretty fair to say that that's the entire auditorium. All right, keep your hands up. Now, keep your hand raised if you've heard of the Armenian genocide. All right, I can maybe think 20, 25 people out of everyone here. For those of you that don't know, Armenia is a very old country. It was founded in the 6th century BCE. It's on the eastern border of Turkey, right next to the countries of Georgia and Azerbaijan. Armenia is the oldest Christian nation in the world, but it's also home to one of the worst genocides that the world has ever witnessed. During World War I, 1.5 million people of Armenian heritage were killed in Armenia, modern-day Turkey, and the Syrian desert. Bitterness over thousands of years of religious dispute led to the Armenians being deported from their homes. Told they were living in an active war zone, everyone who resisted deportation was killed. From there on, the genocide was carried out in 2 systematic phases. 1, the killing of all able-bodied men, and 2, women, children, and the elderly being led in death marches across the Syrian desert, where they faced starvation, dehydration, and malnutrition. When I was in the 7th grade, my brother Matt came home from school and told our family that he was doing a report in history class on the Armenian genocide. I knew that my brother and I and my mom were of Armenian heritage, but I had no idea what the Armenian genocide was, and I was very interested. That night, while my brother and I were studying, I went into his room and researched the Armenian genocide with him. I found out everything someone would want to know about it. I mean, it's all on Google: who, when, where, why, how. But the one question that Google couldn't answer for me was why I didn't know about it. I knew about the genocides in Rwanda. I knew about the Jewish Holocaust. I knew that there were Jewish Holocaust museums all over the country and world. But why did I not know about the Armenian genocide? A few days later, my brother called me down to the basement. He said, "Josh, come look at this." And he showed me an old family tree dating back to 1921 in Baku, Turkey. The family tree was a beautiful old tree painted on a wooden frame, and it showed many branches of the Bedayan family being cut off in the year 1915. My family's branch was one of the few that survived onto there, showing onto my grandfather and my mom and her sisters. One of the most tragic things about the Armenian genocide is that it's part of a global debate on whether or not it actually happened. Only 27 countries in the world have actually accepted the Armenian genocide as a legitimate historical event. Don't feel bad if Kim Kardashian is the only thing you know about Armenia, because I can guarantee to most high school students in this room, it wasn't in your high school textbook. The reason for this is because the United States is part of a mass majority of countries that have still not accepted the genocide as a legitimate historical event. One of the big arguments about the Armenian genocide is over if the word genocide is an accurate word to describe what happened in Armenia in 1915. Most historians and members of the Armenian diaspora agree that it is an accurate word, but Turkey and many of its allies disagree. It is also a topic of great debate involving current political and religious leaders. Recently, Pope Francis referred to the genocide as the first genocide of the 20th century. This controversial statement led to the Turkish ambassador being withdrawn from the Vatican and scorn from all over the world. In the past 3 years, President Obama has discussed the genocide nationally, but never actually used the word genocide in reference to the event. He's used the word massacre, terrible carnage, horrific violence, and a dark chapter of history, but never used the actual word genocide. People ask if arguing the legitimacy of the Armenian genocide is worth its while. In World War I, a young German infantry soldier in Turkey witnessed the events of the Armenian genocide. In 1942, he went on to assume great political power, and on the verge of launching a massive invasion into Western Europe, his advisors warned him against it. This leader responded to his advisors, "Who, after all, speaks today of the annihilation of the Armenians?" 3 years later, 6 million Jewish people were dead, and the world was proclaiming, "Never again." I appreciate the awareness that the Holocaust is spread throughout the world and American media, but it stings a little bit for it to take 30 years, a second world war, and 6 million more lives for people to say, "Never again." Thank you.
Our third speaker this evening is Zikun Deng, class of 2015, Lamborghini, The History of Perfection.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, parents, faculty, and my fellow cadets. Today, let's talk about the sports car. Well, before I even start my speech, I'd like to share a question with you guys. There has been a question in my mind since I played and watched the earlier Need for Speed in my early age. Why is Lamborghini, especially in 21st century, remarked as the most significant phenomenon of luxury sports car? Well, I have done some researches and I truly found out something that's really interesting about the founder, Mr. Lamborghini, and this brand. So today, I'd like to present a speech about my favorite and the world, the most favorite car, automobile Lamborghini. First of all, I'd like to talk about the founder, Ferruccio Lamborghini. Interestingly, one version of how and why Lamborghini got into sports car business was based on a bet between him and Enzo Ferrari, the founder of Ferrari SPA, over who could build a better sports car. In an interview with Lamborghini, he said, "Enzo Ferrari used to tell me, 'Mr. Lamborghini, you may be able to drive a car, but you will never be able to handle a Ferrari properly.' And Lamborghini said, that was the point when he finally decided to make a perfect sports car. Demanding to make the perfect sports car, Lamborghini in 1963 transferred his company of farmer cars into a vehicle company with the objective to produce a phenomenal sports car against those big companies like Ferrari. And at the same year, in 1963, the first Lamborghini, known as the legendary 350 GTV, came out as a surprise in 1963 Turin Auto Show. Notice that the Turin Auto Show used to be the biggest and the most influential automobile show in Italy. However, this show didn't last after the 21st century. Anyway, overall, the 350 GTV was not only a first excellent attempt, but also an awesome prototype of the decade. Then, not too long later, in exactly 2 years, the Miura series came out as a rock star in 1965 October, becoming the world's first sports car in just 4 months. Well, right here, what do I mean by the first sports car? Notice that at launch, the Miura series used to be the fastest car available on this planet. The company then gained wide acclaim in 1966 for the Miura series, which established the standard layout for high-performance car of this era. However, affected by the 1973 worldwide financial shutdown and some international oil crisis, the company faced some severe problem which led them transfer their company's ownership 3 times, including a bankruptcy, till they were last at the end of 1990s, which is 5 years after Mr. Lamborghini's death, to Volkswagen Group. Even though at that time, Mr. Lamborghini was gone, the company still started Lamborghini a new generation because to be creative and always revolutionary is what Lamborghini is all about. Came to the 21st century, Automobile Lamborghini hired a great amount of scientific employees to produce its own carbon fiber material to build lighter cars. And also they hired a lot of well-trained workers to maintain its handmade car tradition. The first major innovation came in 2001 with the previous Lamborghini's successor, Murcielago. Then in the following years, Lamborghini added 2 more awesome prototypes into its portfolio, which are Gallardo and Aventador. It's almost incredible that after decades of suffering, Lamborghini is still able to regain its popularity with those 3 awesome prototypes. You know that Murcielago, Gallardo, and Aventador are also the 3 most popular products of Lamborghini nowadays. If you guys have a poster of sports car on your wall, just like I do, I promise you, 80% of it would be one of those 3 cars. That's how popular they are. However, even though those 3 cars has brought Lamborghini a great popularity, Lamborghini factories still produce less than 2,000 units each year. You guys know why? Well, let me ask you a question first. What's your opinion about a luxury? What do you think is a luxury? In my opinion, or probably in Mr. Lamborghini's opinion, we both believe that luxury is something that's not just wonderful, amazing, phenomenal, but also very rare. That's why Lamborghini hold opinion of making luxury sports car. So it set limits on production each year to ensure its value and nobility. Then we came to the 2010s when it's time for Lamborghini to flex its muscle again. The limited edition of Aventador, Lamborghini Veneno, came out. As the leading production of speed, Lamborghini Veneno has brought Lamborghini a new milestone. This brand new Lamborghini prototype, besides representing the successor to the Aventador series, also redefined the benchmark for luxury sports car in this generation. Compared to the fastest car of Ferrari California, Lamborghini Veneno is so much faster when Ferrari California only runs at top speed 190 miles per hour, but Lamborghini Veneno runs at 220 miles per hour. Until this time, there's no doubt that Lamborghini has become the world leading brand of sports car. At the end, I was supposed to end out my speech right here, but after the last round of this competition, some of my friends came to me and be like, "Hey, Dan, we like your speech. Lamborghini, hey, pretty cool. But we are wondering why. Why you want to talk about Lamborghini?" Well, right here, right on this stage, what I want to further to explain to those of my friends and also to you, my audience, is the unique meaning of Lamborghini. The significance of this car to people like you and me, like those who study in college, like those who work in society. The meaning of this car to our young men. Instead of being a symbol of wealthy, a symbol of money, in my opinion, Lamborghini is more like a dream or sort of a motivation to us. Whenever you hang your poster of Lamborghini on your wall, it actually motivates you to study, to work hard, and pushes you to success in this society, in this world. And when eventually you brought your first Lamborghini, when you touch its fascinating skin, when you listen to its thundering engine, you will eventually realize that this is why the dream exists. Thank you, everyone. This concludes all my speech tonight. I wish you all had an enjoyable time. Thank you again for paying attention. Thank you.
And lastly, our last speaker, Kenneth Kyle Merton's class of 2016, Remaking Hollywood, the Key to Successful Movie Remakes.
Has the following situation ever happened to you? You head to your local movie theater in order to see a film remake of one of your all-time favorite classics, only to leave utterly disappointed. You almost wish you were mugged. At least then, after they took all your money, you wouldn't have ruined all the memories you had of what was a great movie. However, it's hard to pinpoint exactly why these films are so bad. Is it the acting, the set design, the casting? Why? It's hard to pinpoint. However, through close analysis of the recent remake failures of RoboCop and Oldboy, in contrast with the success of John Carpenter's 1982 remake, The Thing, one can determine how to create a successful remake. In the case of Jose Padilla's 2013 remake of RoboCop, the film was too different in order for audiences to engage with the film. This was first reflected in the change of rating from an ultra-violent R rating to a much softer PG-13 rating. In addition, they chose to change the feel of the film, making the film, which was once based in a seedy dystopian version of Detroit, into a film that was based upon futuristic and sleek concepts of the future, based in versions of drone warfare. In addition, they removed the satire that was so present in the film, making it seem strangely humorless for a film that's about a robotic policeman. This was further reflected through their redesign of RoboCop's iconic armor, changing what was once a government faceless drone into a man who can see his own hand and face, but cannot understand for a significant portion of the plot that he is a human being. These changes have caused such critics such as Empire critic Chris Hewitt to state there is, quote, a sense that Padilla, or perhaps his corporate overlords, don't really get what made the original so special. However, it is possible to be too devoted to one's source material. In the case of 2013 Spike Lee remake of the 2003 Park Chan-wook film Oldboy, there were too few changes from the original Korean film. The twists and turns that were so present in the original were now gone, making the film seem repetitive and boring. In addition, they removed the dramatic irony and black comedy that was so present throughout the original, making it seem like a humorless shot-for-shot remake of the original. In addition, it was too rapid. The film came out a mere 10 years after the original appeared, making it seem pointless. After all, there's a much better version that already exists. This lack of change has caused critics such as Mark Kermode of The Guardian to state there is, quote, that, quote, other than catering to an audience unwilling to read subtitles, it's hard to see what Spike Lee has brought to the table, end quote. However, in the case of John Carpenter's 1982 film, The Thing, a remake of Christian Nyby's 1951 film, The Thing from Another World, the film was successful. But why? In order to make the film successful, John Carpenter used originality while still keeping the core themes of the original. This was reflected when John Carpenter chose to delve deep into the source material that inspired the original film, a science fiction short story known as Who Goes There? However, he didn't stick too closely to this, instead changing the ending to a bleak and nihilistic one, while changing the characters to reflect the tone of the film. In addition, he used astounding practical effects in order to make the film more horrific than any other film seen before. These changes have caused the film to have a legacy, such as landing it on Forbes' top 10 list of remakes ever, and causing critics such as James Bernardelli to state that it is one of, quote, the rare remakes that remains faithful to the original, but does something unique with the concept, end quote. We live in a time where tens of films are remade every year, such as Total Recall, Godzilla, and even Annie. These films can be good, but so often they're simply cynical cash grabs that leave us jaded towards new films. So if these filmmakers don't wish to make films that audiences want to go see, then perhaps they should stick to making their own original films. Thank you.
Let us once again recognize the high school cadets for their speeches. At this time, the judge will have an intermission while the judges deliberate on all three awards. And during that time, under the supervision of our bandmaster, Warrant Officer Freddie Lomas, we will have more entertainment from our band. So we'll see you back in a few minutes. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again for a wonderful band under the direction of Warrant Officer Lomas. Thank you very much. Before we announce the cadets, the awards, I want to give special mention and kudos to our English department, both in the high school and in the middle school, Lieutenant Commander Bushnell, Color Sergeant Mike Harding, Lieutenant Bell, and Captain Olive for the great work they did guiding these boys on this whole, the speaking and the paper. Thank you very much, English department. We will now have the middle school award, the Joy McGeorge Oratorical Award, presented by Mrs. McGeorge. Mrs. McGeorge, would you like to please come up? And Mr. Leonardi will present this, or name the awardee.
The winner of the Joy McGeorge Middle School Oratory Award. Speaking on the topic, are we too dependent on computers? Eugenio Valdez. Let me say with regard to the high school students, gentlemen, very good, excellent, very, very difficult decision. We had to be given the last 30 seconds to say you've got to make a decision. So this was close, okay? The Winston Churchill Award, speaking to a just cause, is awarded to Cadet Paley. You get to keep that. The Wallace Fry Award. Ability, rhetorical skill, content is awarded to Cadet Paley.
Let's thank our judges for their good work also this evening. I think this has been a great way to begin the graduation weekend. Tomorrow begins at 9 a.m. with company competitive drills and a great rest of the weekend to follow. So we'll see you then. Have a good rest of the evening, and thank you all. Thank you, cadets. Good night.